Hold on to your butt.
Come on, sucker. Let's get it on.
Oh, you want to fight? You want to fight?
I do not entertain hypotheticals. The world as it is vexing enough.
You don't know anybody named Iris? I don't know nobody named Iris.
Can I have a piece of toast?
I don't give a damn what you think you are entitled to.
We are changing the course of history as we see it. That is what Wesley demands.
How could you do this to me? Really, I want to know.
Why did you do that?
What you feel only matters to you.
Step back for 1 minute and look at the big picture.
And that's all? No, not for the real fire.
We offer you a bond, a family that very few can understand.
Help me.
Help you.
And don't do drugs.
Or Whatever Movies with Wesley and Iris.
What up, and welcome to Or Whatever Movies. I am your co-host, Iris, and I am here with my older brother,
Wesley.
And today we are talking a film from 2016, Train to Busan. I loved that we watched this film. I love that this film is available in Korean, its original language, with subtitles. Thank you for not dubbing Train to Busan.
Well, the inevitable remake will come. It'll be like the 310 to Pittsburgh. So this is our second review of a Korean film after Parasite. And how did you feel that was received?
Well, we were still kind of getting our sea legs with our new podcast. And I don't think Celia was particularly pleased with our Parasite review. And I'm not sure why, but I hope we didn't alienate her as a listener because, you know, she is my best friend after all.
Hi, the chill. So because my review of Parasite was spot on, it must have been your take, right?
Yeah, and I was thinking about that for this review. Like, I probably want to avoid the imbecilic, kind of really naive Korean culture conversations and questions because I think this movie stands on its own without having to be so anchored to Korean culture. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's just, I mean, when I initially viewed it and when I recommended it for this review, I just saw it as rock-ass zombie horror.
Which it totally is. This thing was scary.
Yeah.
And it was really unfair of you to recommend it. To force me to watch it when I'm home alone with the girls.
So this movie, when I recommended it to you for watching for review, was kind of a last gasp of fast zombie horror.
But what a great premise. What a great concept for fast zombies.
Yeah, speed with zombies on a train. Sorta. I mean, right? The inevitable scene, the Mission Impossible scene where they're scrambling on the outside of the train never happened. I get the sense that this was a fairly modest budget and more spent for makeup than anything else, right?
What about the giant train wreck at the end?
Yeah, and the climactic action scenes that we got were pretty good for the amount of money they had. It felt very much like a video game to me. Just the way that they would get trapped into situations and there was only one exit, especially when they get to the train yard. How trains would completely block off any other exits and the cars would be on fire. And it's like, we can only go one way, and that is to scramble under this train. And this train is blocking this exit, so we must only go this way.
I don't play any video games, but I get what you're saying. And I think that games in general don't have the scope and scale that you can get in movies and in cinema. Its scope seemed big. Like, I did not feel like the world was small. I did not feel like they had their hands tied budget-wise. They introduced the outside world in such a way that didn't feel like they were cheating it.
And we did have the family themes. They were strong in this movie. And we typically start movies like this where it's based in family and we're kind of waiting for the zombies to show up. But this one, this undercurrent of tension between the father and the daughter really played and sustained throughout in such a way that we were rooting for them to reconnect amidst all the zombie horror. Most of the time, I will look at a movie like this, American movies of this type, and be like, that kid is awfully young. We're going to have to get that kid out of the way right away. Not saying to kill the kid, but I'm saying that kid, if we're going to sustain believability in a zombie apocalypse movie, let's not have the little kid running around and crying.
She was great.
Yeah.
She was so small. She was so small. She still had the little pot belly and she had the little Miyazaki toddler frame, you know, where their belly is kind of all pushed out. And I loved when she was just like a sullen little kid and then she rolls with the punches. And at the end, she's got a pretty dramatic turn, like having to let go of her dad.
The key, I mean, she was cute and awfully young, but most importantly, not annoying for the duration of this movie.
Are kids typically annoying?
Yes. No, kids are trouble in movies like this because they have to be protected, they have to be coddled, and parents have to compromise themselves in the interest of the kids and make dumb decisions.
The kids in Jurassic Park, were they annoying?
No, but they were definitely more trouble than they were worth. Turn the light off.
War of the Worlds?
Well, that's Dakota Fanning, and she's the man. She's maybe the most self-aware, prescient child actor ever. Next to possibly Haley Joel Osment.
She was like scary smart in I Am Sam.
Yeah, no, that's her strength. She's an old soul in a young body.
Okay, so kid not annoying, check.
And then, so we've got Korean actors, and from our stupid American perspective, I'm not sure how many of these people are stars, but I don't want to be rude and do disservice to them, so we're going to give them names. So Yu Gong portrays Seok Woo, and we're going to call him Dad. And Yoo Mi Jung plays Seong Kyung, and we're going to call her Preggers. So, and the reason, the impetus for this creating nicknames as a sign of respect rather than disrespect is because Sang-hwa, who plays the Hulkster, his real name is Dong Suk Ma. And then Suan Kim plays Suan, we're going to call her the kid. Wee Sung Kim plays Yeon Suk, and we're going to call him Businessman, because we know who we're talking about. And Wai-sik Choi plays Yongguk, and we're going to call him Baseball Bat. What about
Jinhee?
Jinhee, who is that?
As An So-hee.
Yeah,
she's
the
cheerleader.
Baseball girlfriend. Baseball cheerleader. It's
All right,
just,
you really don't want to get pronunciations.
Nope. Do we need to know anything beyond he was Dad?
Fine.
You don't even want to get into the socio-political ramifications or implications of Train to Busan.
I'm saying we don't have to ask stupid Korean culture questions.
Okay, well, let's not. So,
okay.
Family drama, blah, blah, blah. Dad evolution from a workaholic to an upstanding zombie, I guess, blah, blah, blah. And it was all there.
To not caring about people or only caring about himself and then to caring about people.
Right.
Even though really he was caring about his daughter the whole time, which he kind of cared about at the top.
And at the height of this, the bad guy, the businessman, was everything that we didn't want Dad to become, and ultimately what Dad himself did not want to become, and literally had to do battle with that side of himself. And to say he won is maybe not accurate. Maybe he was too far gone. Anyway, that's not what this movie's about. It's kind of what this movie's about, but it is not that on which we will focus.
What is this movie about?
Zombies, dude. I liked the fast zombies. I liked that the threat was coming from all directions. It was pretty unexpected. You know, the flimsy glass doors would hold them and stuff, and then all of a sudden they would come surging through in a tide, or they would break out through the window upstairs in unexpected places and carry them off the roof of the train, and so you have to scramble inside.
Yeah, they would, like, if they saw a living person, they would, no matter what, go for it.
Right.
Even if it meant, like, jumping out of windows.
Until it was out of sight, out of mind, and then they would just sniff around and jerk and stuff.
Or it was dark.
Yeah. So the last thing I will say about this being a Korean zombie movie specifically, and I've been trying to think of how to phrase this delicately so it's not offensive to anyone. Once things ramp up, we see Koreans in their everyday life, and you see the train attendant, the lady with the scarf askew, and she seems meek and docile, and she
was polite and professional.
Right, and she seems like the type who would be like all giggly and like insta snapping or whatever in her little train skirt. And then when these normal people turn, they get crazy and hella twitchy,
they go rabid fast,
and really scary. Like, it's an athleticism that I would not have expected of some of these people. You know, they're thrashy, and it's like Americans wouldn't do this. They would leave it to stuntmen, which is why it doesn't look quite as scary or compelling, because they would hurt themselves doing some of these things. I get that there were special effects involved, but dude, these people went for it. I mean, it's not just throw on some blood and they look kind of scary and tilt their heads down and upcast their eyes like Samara in The Ring or something, or in The Grudge. And they're not just like kind of slow and growly, but they are fast and twitchy and scary.
Yeah, I was wondering, they had to be dancers or they had to limber up for their zombie performances, because I can't imagine how many crick necks there were and like pulled muscles because they were behaving unnaturally.
They're just so lean and so not American and so not fat. I think that natural athleticism and just their ability to contort, maybe contortionists, I'm sure that there were some of those, but I do know that there were at least a couple people in this movie that were members of K-pop groups. And it's not to say they don't go through choreography and training and dance and all that stuff. I'm sure some of them were dancers.
They had to have been body artists of some kind because, yeah.
And the Hulkster was definitely a body artist. He was the buffest Korean dude I've ever seen.
Was he buff or was he just kind of portly? Like, I didn't expect him to be able to, like, pick up a zombie and then use him as a barricade against thronging zombies.
Especially when he reverse body slams the zombie upwards into the roof. It's pretty extensive. He just looked like a chunkster until he took off the sweater and you realize that some of that is jacked. He's like legit strong man strong, right? Where you don't have to be like all cut and lean, where you're just bulky and you can bench press trucks and stuff and body slam people upwards.
Well, apparently you don't have to be strong man strong to like lift up a train because that's what Dad does at the end.
But he's all like adrenaline fueled or whatever. I mean, he has to use all of his strength, and it required a homeless dude's sacrifice to get them out of that situation in close quarters.
Have you ever Snoped?
Yes.
Snopes? It's Snopes, right?
Snopes.com, yeah.
Have you ever Snopesed the myth about the mom who like lifts up the car to save her baby?
No.
Is that for reals?
Yeah, no, the adrenaline is legitimate. That doesn't mean that it doesn't do horrible damage to your body, but your body, and you override the threshold of pain that serves as a warning to, hey, stop doing that because you'll hurt yourself. And so if you don't know, you exert all of your muscles and you can lift heavy objects all the while tearing and breaking yourself in the process.
Well, there was a lot of adrenaline surging in these characters, and they were a little selective about when they could do really superhuman stuff. Like, they bushwhack through 3 or 4 cars filled with zombies, and then Dad and homeless dude are like afraid when homeless dude steps on a can and there's one zombie in the car.
That's because the Hulkster was front and center for most of the time. And homeless
when
dude
they
was
bushwhacked?
He was like a skittering dude. And also they had to kind of let go of their fear over time to be able to face them. But also I thought that baseball bat, despite being the only athlete of the bunch, arguably, we don't know what the Hulkster did for a living, but he was really ineffectual at swinging said baseball bat.
Well, he was a kid, and how could he level his bat against his best friends, like his baseball team?
It's true, and that was really sad. Give the bat to the Hulkster and step in the back. Go to the back.
But he definitely should have batted Cheerleader Chick in the head.
Yeah, but it was sad because they spent so much of his motivation was getting back through to her, and when he lost her, he kind of lost, his instinct for survival.
He was the one that she sat next to on the train initially, right? Why was he so embarrassed that she sat next to him? Like, was he shy, or like, did he not want his baseball friends to know about his relationship with Cheerleader?
I don't know.
Let's talk about preggers and other movies where there's vulnerable preggers running around.
Okay.
Namely, The Rundown with The Rock.
Oh, the really greasy one running around in the background, all useless or whatever?
That was me in my background acting days.
Did you get to keep the belly?
Ew, no. And it was gross, too, to begin with. Like, who knows how many times that pregnant belly was used.
Ew.
But I was really fast. Like, they had to tell me to slow down. They were like, you're pregnant. You can't run that fast. And I was like, oh, sorry.
Well, preggers in this movie, she pretty much went for it, right? I mean, she and the Hulkster saved Swan when it looked like her dad was looking for his exit and trying to kind of save himself. Turns around and she almost got God. And Hulkster and preggers stepped in to save her. So she was kind of in the thick of things. And I didn't get as much from she's the untouchable saint who must be protected at all costs. Pretty practical for a pregnant lady in this role.
Preggers and Hulkster, is that what you're calling him? They were the model parents, right? Not only were they selfless, or at least recognized, like they looked out for others, right? But they also called a spade a spade. They're like, your dad's a jerk.
Yeah, and I think they were model Koreans in that way. I like that he continued to call Dad an asshole throughout the whole movie. He's like, hey, take care of my family, asshole.
I think that Hulkster helps to illustrate Dad's arc, right? Because he initially closes the door when there's people who clearly need help and who clearly could have cleared the door without him closing it on them.
Clearly.
And then yet in the end, he's looking out for the team. And he's just trying to get his daughter and in the end, preggers across the finish line.
Yep. And when they get to said finish line and Dad has to confront Businessman, I can't help but think that he allowed himself to be bit. Was that the impression you got?
Let himself get bitten on the train? Like he could have just thrown the zombie off.
Well, they're struggling, and you're like, yeah, you've seen Hulkster get bitten. You've seen a lot of people get bitten on the hand or whatever. Don't get your hand near his mouth, and he did. Maybe that was just my impression.
Yeah, I mean, why try and fight him off? Like, get him off of the train as quickly as possible.
Just drop kick him off the train.
Exactly. I think that was just more a choreographic flaw than it was a character moment. I don't think that he wouldn't have sacrificed himself if he didn't have to.
Yeah, I don't think he would anyway. And for larger themes of the movie, maybe he was too far gone to fully get back, having wrestled with the blah, blah, blah alternate side of himself or whatever.
Or maybe, I guess if you really want to read into the whole SY or YS biotech thing, like, obviously, he and his funding company had something to do with this outbreak. I mean, he goes into the bathroom afterwards and literally washes blood off of his hands.
Yep,
or attempts
and he's
to.
crying and remorseful. I got the sense that him withdrawing all of the funds from that particular, the one that instigated the outbreak, or the one that was the cause. The company, the organization that was the cause for the outbreak, may have put them under, and somehow he directly contributed to the outbreak. I don't know. It was a little bit unclear, at least for me, but maybe he was never destined to get away scot-free. He came in the end a little bit closer to being more idealized, or the father that Swan deserved, but probably never all the way.
I think that everyone's destinies were pretty clear early on. You knew that they can't kill preggers. They can't kill the kid.
No, it's true. And they can't kill the kid. However, one person's death, Dad was impactful. Homeless guy was impactful. Hulkster was impactful. Baseball bat maybe kind of got what he deserved, or at least he reaped what he sowed in the situation he put himself in. But conductor dude, who got off the train to save everybody, who was safe and sound in the train, in the engine, and could have gotten away on his own, as Businessman undoubtedly wanted to or tried to do, and ultimately sacrificed the conductor in order to be able to do. Conductor dude, that was terrible.
That was terrible. But he was expendable after he started that train.
Oh, that's true.
Then Businessman didn't need him anymore.
But I wanted him to be chasing the train, chasing the car, because by rights, that's his train. He helped to secure it. And I wanted Dad to chuck Businessman off into the waiting arms and jaws of Conductor. That would have been satisfying.
They were too far along for that. But wasn't it interesting that Businessman turned? I mean, when did he get infected?
Well, unfortunately, when he sacrificed Conductor by kind of whipping him around into the diving zombie's path, maybe he got bitten and got away in the scramble and was able to lock himself in the engine, because he still wasn't quite turned. He kind of had the snap where he, is obviously all zombie and no remaining humanity, but it took him a long time. And obviously the first kid that got on the train, her transformation took a while too. It was like Transformers, where you see the machinations as like, and like you transform so that we can track it. And by later on in the movie, they're jumping up in the air and flipping into jets and taking off in midair. It's instantaneous, and the transformation of some of the zombies later on was instantaneous. But we had to see the slower transitions of the girl that got on the train to establish what was happening. The dad, certainly, when he has his flashback about Suan's upbringing and smiles, and Businessman, who got the chance to realize his fear and call for his mommy and stuff before he turned.
Wasn't that such a nice release, though? Didn't you want the dude to just acknowledge that he was afraid?
Yeah.
And that's why he was being such a dick?
Instead of transferring that fear to everyone around him and sacrificing people in the interest of his survival.
Yeah, that was pretty satisfying.
That said, he was a smart guy. He was definitely calculating and knew how to turn people against each other. He could very well have survived and led the bad camp that the good camp would have to come to war with, in another movie.
Yeah, I've been there, done that, The Walking Dead.
So we don't have to worry about that. Train to Busan presents Peninsula. It may be a completely different thing. Train to Busan, give or take, it costs, and I'm not kidding, 10 billion of whatever the Korean currency is. That translates to about $8 million, which is hella modest for a movie like this. And from what I understand, Peninsula doubled that budget. So we'll see if the production value makes itself known.
Well, I mean, it takes a lot to create the end of the world.
And so this would have been my fourth entry of questionable choices to get Kelly to sit down and watch. She said, it's okay, it's zombie and it's horror, but is it gory? Because there's definitely a difference between blood and blood splattery and gory. And Train to Busan was definitely bloody, but not necessarily gory or brutal. I think we got an initial shot of somebody's hand getting chewed on, maybe a chewed on neck, and that's about it. So we will see in what direction they go for Peninsula.
I wasn't scared. There weren't stupid, cheap scares. It was like zombie action movie.
Yep.
And it was kind of fun. I mean, it's especially fun not being in that situation and being on that train and watching it from the comfort of my living room. It was fun, but it was scary and it was tense.
Yep.
But it wasn't horror.
And it was just sort of, nobody had a gun. Nobody and everybody in this American version would have had a gun, right?
What, train passengers?
Yeah. Train passengers.
Like regular old train passengers?
Yeah, and you got the one dude in the big jacket who has a gun, and then he becomes the de facto leader of the angry militant group. And then you have the resistance group of the nice people. But there is at least one machine gun in Peninsula.
But isn't all this, the lack of guns and whatnot, part of what makes Train to Busan fresh?
Yes.
The fact that it's normal people on a normal commute, basically in real time, fighting off zombie hordes, and they get infected and transform like almost immediately. I kind of hate when movies go all militaristic.
Right.
It's like when movies, like a normal movie becomes a military movie, or like a normal movie becomes like suddenly a courtroom movie, and you're like, what? Like, this isn't the movie that I signed up for.
Yeah, it's almost like a cheat.
Would you have gotten off at the station, the first station?
You know, we actually had that exact discussion. I probably would have gotten off. There are definitely zombies on the train, and that is less preferable to no zombies in sight. You're in a confined space, but you have limited options on the train. So it would have been scary, and I definitely would have felt more comfortable being insulated in a group getting off. I wouldn't have gotten off by myself. But yes, I probably would have gotten off to questionable zombie stop as opposed to full zombie train.
And would you have run toward the limpy dude who was not calling out to you in the east side of the station?
No, God, no. As soon as I see anybody and he's any other color than human skin color, I run away. No blood, none of that. If you've been through the thick of it and you got away, you're either bitten or compromised or both. And no way. The amount of time that they spent in hopes that dude was okay was time that they could have spent running away.
And would you have been in the car with the wusses, shaming and rejecting and discriminating against to the newcomers?
I see what you're doing here. And in a coronavirus age, I'm the person saying, be safe, don't be stupid. And some of the survivors were definitely on the stupider side. Now, Businessman has the cultural or sociopolitical illusion of separation equating to safety. He can get rid of the undesirable people and it'll be better.
Basically eliminate risk at all costs, even at the cost of your humanity.
Yes. Now that is true up to a point, not the humanity part, and not by sacrificing people who are not infected. If you're in your golden tower all by yourself, what's the point?
Well, you know, as long as you got supplies and stuff, you can ride it out, especially at this infection rate. When he was in the bathroom washing his hands of blood, I was like, turn off the water. What if you need that water
That's
to
so
survive?
Weird. Kelly said
as you
the
stay
same
on
thing.
That train. Really?
She's like, don't waste water.
I think it's a California
you need that.
thing. It's true. I mean, if you're going to hole up in a train because the zombies cannot open the vestibule doors, don't waste your water.
Yeah. But still, the imagery is stronger than the practicality.
Was it basically so all the imagery was all metaphor? It was like, wash the blood from my hands and the water is running like the sands of time?
I don't know about that strong, but there was a lot there. You just don't want to get into it.
I don't want to get into what?
About the sociopolitical implications, associations.
I just don't want to be like, so in Korean, like, do they not like people to have business jobs? I said in Korean. We didn't talk about this. Did we not talk about this? Because I silenced you early on, like the whole idea that the government does not admit throughout the entire movie that something is actually very, very wrong.
I'm not really sure. I'm not sure how much censorship gets through, but the two old ladies were tisking, and this never would have happened back in our day, and this is what the world has come to, and that manifested itself when she saw the class separation and how people were banding together, alienating and ostracizing other people for their own means, for the purposes of survival.
Last thing is diversity in Korean cinema.
This is what you want to wrap on?
Not even like the token, like white person or black person or brown person.
I don't know that Korea is the mixing pot that America is.
Okay. I'm just saying, it's the hot button issue. I hope to see some diversity in Peninsula. That's all.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
So what do you think?
If you're looking for some kind of revelatory review, I'm afraid you're not finding it, because Train to Busan is obviously good.
Well, revelatory in that we're exploring deeper themes, or it was good, it was fun, it was zombie, it was cool?
It was cool. It was fun. It was thrilling. It was a little bit scary. And in terms of storytelling craft, it was neatly done, right? They even found a way to come back around to the Aloha Ye song.
Yep. Tightly constructed story, good for what it was. I personally felt it was a little bit video gamey and convenient in that it could only literally go one way. I did appreciate that as long as we were going in one direction, and that was very clear, still the threat came from different places that were unexpected, and in different scenarios where we weren't just on the train the whole time. We had a few different stops and a few hair-raising scenarios that were good for me. So they kept being driven back onto the train, wherever that train might have been headed.
I'm not hearing any fatal flaws.
Yeah,
Was
no,
this a totally?
But it wasn't my favorite zombie movie. Definitely a fun movie, a solid all right.
Favorite zombie movie?
Favorite zombie movie is probably, come at me bro, 28 Weeks Later, which had so many of the elements that I really adored. I think that Train to Busan was bright and cheery and fun and scary, and the only nighttime we got was really in the tunnels, which would made the zombies sedate. But the idea of being out where you can't see the threat under cover of night, where they can definitely see you, that makes for scary stuff. And that's all present in some other zombie movies that I like more than Train to Busan.
I like that they treated the zombies so simply, right?
Yep.
They were fast, they were scary, they were singularly focused, and they were lethal. The night thing was, I think, a bit of a fatal flaw for me. Like, why didn't they just wait till sunset and then make their way to Busan? But whatever. Train to Busan was a solid good. You can't say solid, all right? That's just, you can't add 3 scales to your scale.
I can do whatever I want. It's my podcast.
It's our podcast. Train to Busan was a solid good, I guess, if I were to adopt your vernacular. That's our talk on Train to Busan. Please be looking out for our review on Train to Busan Presents Peninsula. Let us know what you think about this review or our podcast in general, 818-835-0473 or whatevermovies@gmail.com. Please follow us on Instagram and Twitter. We always love to hear from you, and we'd love to incorporate more of your reviews and your remarks in our podcast. And a special thanks to our Patreon patrons, without whom we could not do what we do. We appreciate your support. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.